Hi, everybody. We're here with Karrie Porter with the TV theme battle bracket. She's been one of the heavy supporters, putting the word out there for the city of St. Catharines. A lot of Wellanders have been involved, but she's been expanding it. She's a city councilor with the city of St. Catharines, a community advocate, and a real TV theme connoisseur. Is that safe to say, Karrie?
I think that's safe to say. I didn't think that I would be into this so much, but I am into this. I can't believe how passionate I am about some of these battles, and how upset I've been at some of the losses,
Yeah, so
honestly.
you've been on an emotional roller coaster, and I was going to really talk about that a little bit later on, but we might as well cut to the chase. Like, as a city councilor, you're involved with tough decisions every day, right? Like decisions, motions, infrastructure, big
Yeah,
budgets. And then I see your comments on Twitter, and you're putting some thought into this. Like, you're used to heavy decisions, but why is it becoming a little bit more of a challenge than earlier expected?
I don't know. There's no compromise here. It's just black and white, one or the other, right? And you got to make a choice. And so I think that that's tough. And the 80s were a strange time, right? Like, I was born in the 70s, so I clearly remember the early 80s, the mid 80s, and the late 80s. And then when
Mhm.
you get to other decades, the decade just seems like one chunk of time.
Yeah.
So I think there's a bit of a generational divide between some of us, And for example, the DuckTales and the Star Trek Next Generation, like that was a tight race. And I was trying to figure that out, like who would vote for DuckTales over Star Trek. And I think maybe there were younger people who watched DuckTales more than I did. But
Yeah.
I'm passionate about that one, right?
Mhm.
And there was just a change in music from the early 80s to the late 80s, right? Different shows. I don't know. When were you born?
78.
78. Okay. Okay. Little younger than I am. So
Yeah.
yeah. And the other thing, that the whole world seemed to be on fire when this battle started. So it was nice to just think about a different time in our lives when
Yes,
we
absolutely.
um, when we didn't know what the US was doing in other parts of the world, and we thought it was a wonderful place. And my favorite show in the 80s was MacGyver. Um, this is not part of the theme battle, but the theme song was actually quite terrible and not memorable at all. I don't know. Did you watch MacGyver?
Yeah, I watched a little bit of MacGyver. I was definitely more Dukes and Knight Rider if I was going to have and then a little bit of A-Team, right? So
Yes.
those were.
I was really disappointed. I love the Knight Rider theme song. Is what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think it lost. Unfortunately, I'm going to actually pull up the screen and so we can be refreshed on who it lost to. And then ultimately, I did think it got an unfair shake too. And to lose two Hasselhoff songs at once, and I think that really, in 1 week, I think that was sent a lot of, at least me, reeling emotionally. So we're going to go Knight Rider. Yeah, lost against Growing Pains, and now,
Ah,
yeah, and
yeah.
so you know, Carol Phillips is going to be interviewed next week. She's, a big advocate for your high action songs. And yeah, Knight Rider, I think gets the pulse going. And then Growing Pains, you can group it together with more of those feel good ones, right? And some people have no time for the feel goods, but it really all depends because, before we did this interview, I was talking about Who's the Boss has been in my head. So maybe deep down, subliminally, I am in a search for a feel good. Yeah.
Yeah, I haven't really been picking the feel good ones. Um, except for Golden, I'm partial to Golden Girls, for sure. I am partial to Golden Girls.
Now, you and also Steve Weidman, who lives in St. Catharines, but originally from the Kingston area, he really talked about his love for Danger Bay. And you did talk about, confess something, and I know your husband's not around right now, but that Doc, the character, you took a real fancy to him. Or did
Oh,
you?
absolutely. He was. environmentalist. He was looking after animals. I think he's a good single dad. Yeah, and what an interesting show. And I love that show. And that was a great theme song. Like
Yes.
very, I got that one stuck in my head. Yeah, and I let my kids listen to some of these theme songs too, and I asked them which one do you think is better. So it's been fun all around. So, and I was thinking about some of the good dads since it's Father's Day. There's some really great dads in some of these TV shows. He was one of them. Uncle Phil from Fresh Prince.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're doing a little side bet. I think we have we have Al Bundy, Uncle Phil, Dan Connor, excuse me, Danny Tanner, and those four going up each other in who is the best dad. Right now, Uncle Phil is ahead, and Dan Connor is not too far behind. And Uncle Phil has it because the people say, "Oh, he's an uncle," but no, he took it another child. And
Yes.
you can say what talk about Hillary, like his first child, maybe not a roaring success, but he put a lot of work into Phil. And there was some conversation on Twitter about that scene when Will's dad comes back, but then he takes off and doesn't even tell him. Do you remember that scene on Fresh Prince?
Yes,
Yeah, that is still a tearjerker. If you can watch that and not have any emotion, I think you should be in jail. Is that too far? Or at least
no, I think that's pretty accurate.
Yeah, I think that would be a good. You know what? I work for an employment agency. Maybe that should be the interview. It should be like, just like, what do you think about this scene? And like, I don't really care for it. I'm like, I'm sorry, this job's just not for you. It could be a new screening tool. But back to Danger Bay. Yeah, I think that when you put some of these Canadian shows like Degrassi and then Danger Bay, compared against how American shows were made, like you mentioned, like no American show in a million years would be like, okay, single father, scientist, adventurer, saves woodland and sea land creatures. And, just like only in Canada would be like, yes, I need more of that. And then it'd be a huge success. So I find that simply amazing. All right, so looking at the last week, was there any shockers there that are moving on that you didn't think were going to move on?
Well, I'm kind of shocked that the Dukes of Hazzard didn't move forward. I know we talked about the problematic themes, some of the themes in that show, the Confederate flag, but just thinking about the theme song, it was an excellent theme song. It's a song I've had stuck in my head for days. So I was a little bit shocked about that, to be honest. And what about you? What was your big shocker?
If I can come out of yesterday just with Seinfeld not able to get any traction. I know I didn't think they were going to win, but I did not think it was going to be the biggest defeat of the tournament so far, with 84% voting for Cheers and only 16% voting for Seinfeld. But the feel good, like the lyrics for Cheers definitely make everyone feel good. But going back to Dukes of Hazzard, you also said that the author or the writer of that song, you enjoy his music, right? And so you were able to look past the Confederate flag and some of the other, I guess, in 2020, not so progressive means. Can you talk more about that?
Yeah, so I like some country music, and I like outlaw country, and I'm a huge fan of Waylon Jennings. And I just think that's a good song. But obviously, we're looking at that show again, and the Confederate statues are coming down all across the U.S. So, we're looking at things through a different lens right now. So I don't know if that had anything to do with the Dukes of Hazzard loss to Full House. I'm not sure. Going back to Seinfeld, I voted for Seinfeld because of that heavy bass line. And I don't want this to end up being all feel good songs at the end. You know what I mean? I want really good. really good, tough battle at the end. And I think this I'm going to have some difficult decisions this week.
Yeah. Well, if we want to focus in on the base, we've got Thursday. We have Night Court versus Law and Order. So you have the judicial portion of it, but they both have very significant bass contributions, both
Yeah.
instrumental. The similarities. They're both based in New York, correct?
Yes.
Night Court, yeah. So, oh goodness, that's going to be really difficult for me. I was gonna say Law and Order, but then I think about Night Court, and it's gonna make things really difficult.
That one's going to be tough for me, and I'm going to struggle with Golden Girls and Star Trek. I love them both equally, and I don't know what I'm going to do. I don't know what I'm going to do.
I think that thinking about those two shows, I think that Captain Picard would be an amazing addition to the cast of Golden Girls. I think he would be a great little cameo piece. Yeah, I'm stalling. What's his real name? Do you remember his real name?
Oh my gosh, no, I'm stalling too.
People watching this will probably be able to come up with it and then just be so angry at us. So we'll move on before they get too angry. We also have Growing Pains versus Drew Carey. So, that's your feel good versus your rocker, Presidents of the United States of America. They have they have 3 hits, and that's one of them. But all right, so you're pulling for the rocker, or are you pulling for Cleveland?
I am pulling for Cleveland, I think, on that one. It's funny because I watched Growing Pains a lot. It was one of my favorite shows, and I had a really, really severe crush on Kirk Cameron. I don't anymore. I grew out of that, thankfully. And he's turned into someone I probably would disagree with on pretty much everything. So, but I'm not partial to that song, and so I think I'm gonna be picking Cleveland in that battle.
Yeah.
And
Yes.
yeah, Matt Boss. That one's gonna be a little tough as well. You know what? I really like the MASH theme song, so I might be pulling for MASH there.
Let's break down the Who's the Boss. I got it queued up, so let's really break that down and enjoy it because it's one of my favorites. So you got your feel good right off the hop. I'm gonna pause it there. The editing in this one is amazing. It's just like action, action, action. It can really catch you in there, and there's so much magic.
It's a good intro.
Yeah.
With the rusty van pulling up to the nice upper class Connecticut house.
Now, Alyssa Milano has, if you can agree with someone politically, you lost Kirk Cameron, but Alyssa Milano, she's very active politically.
Yes,
she's doing a phenomenal job. Yeah.
Yes, I love it. I love it. Samantha.
But also, I liked her character. Also, if you want to talk about non-traditional, like she was a tomboy, they really advertised that. They pushed that. So she wasn't the soft feminine type. She was a strong female leader, and then she's kind of carried that on. So that was good too for the time period.
Mona was a great character too. Yeah, this was actually a really good show. I love this show too. And I just had a flashback of a memorable episode. It's when Samantha got hickeys. Do you remember that episode?
Yeah.
And she was trying to hide them from her dad, and I think she's wearing turtlenecks. Yeah, the ending of that theme song, The Brand New Life.
And then they come back around and hit you again with it. Yeah.
Yes.
that really gets me. Brand new life, brand new life, brand new life around. Oh yes, that's good songwriting for sure.
For that one, do you think that's worthy of the big win? Like, do you think you're pulling for that one all the way? Are you going to tell me?
Am I going to tell you? Yeah, I think it'll beat MASH. I think it's got. I think it can be an underdog in the final four for sure. I think it can beat MASH because
Okay.
you got to remember MASH. We're going to talk about that generational divide. Now MASH started like 76 or 77 and finished in the 80s. Where Who's the Boss is primarily maybe ended in the 90s,
Yeah.
and then Tony Danza, Alyssa Milano, still very visible celebrities compared to,
Yes.
I guess Alan Alda is still a very visible celebrity, even though he's in his 80s as well. But yeah, so it's going to be tough to pull on that one. Now, Cheers, Full House. What are your thoughts on Cheers and Full House?
I'm pulling for Cheers. I think that's going to move. Well, I'm going to vote for that. I think that's my choice. I also think there's a bit of a generational divide between Cheers fans and Full House fans, though, right? Like, full, you know,
Mm-hmm.
that Full House is about a family, and it had those twins in it, um, and there's a reboot of it, right? Of some kind with some of the same actors.
Yeah,
So my watching the new house, and then Cheers was set in a bar, catered to different audience, different demographic. But yeah, I'm pulling for Cheers on this one.
If you ever want to see an advertisement for, you can never go back home or never relive your glory days. Watching Fuller House, the reboot, is a great advertisement that, it's good. It's best just to leave things where they should be in the past, right? It was a great
Yeah.
time, but I'm sure they're getting excellent paychecks. But it's Full House writing just on its own wasn't that great. I know I'm going to get some hate mail for that, but to expand it to a Netflix piece, I think is going to be much more difficult to justify it. It just hasn't been really working that well for it. So, what are your predictions on the Final Four? What are you thinking for the Final Four?
WKRP, Golden Girls, Night Court, and Cheers.
Okay, I like that. So, guys,
Yeah.
you're sticking with your generational thing that you've been talking about through this whole thing. So once again, that's Golden Girls, and you talked about Who's the Boss, Cheers, and then you said WKRP.
Yeah, I got Cheers, Night Court, Golden Girls, and WKRP.
All right, WKRP. It's not going to happen. No, it happens on Saturday, going up against Fresh Prince. So that's going to be a big, generational battle. So we'll see who comes out and votes on that. The Saturday votes are usually pretty high, so we're going to have a pretty high participant rate on that. And so you have talked about MacGyver, and you've talked about your switch of your crush from Doc on Danger Bay replaced Kirk Cameron. What was that? Yeah, Mike. It was Mike Seaver. That was his name, or Mike. Yeah, Mike Seaver. That was his name on Growing Pains. Kirk Cameron.
I remember. I know his last name was Seaver. I think it was Mike Seaver. Yeah, he was just so cute. I'm trying to think of who else I had a crush on. I had some weird crushes on a lot of musicians and stuff, but in terms of TV, he was the big one. Yeah, for sure.
Big one.
And MacGyver, I know this isn't part of the theme battle, but that was probably my favorite show, and I wanted to be MacGyver, and I would go out and play out in the woods with my friends, and we would play MacGyver and recreate MacGyver episodes.
You're like, I got a piece of gum, a playing card, and a paper clip. So I'm going to try to make an explosive here, and and you have all your fingers, right? You never blew up your hands or anything like that, trying to do anything too severe with a cherry bomb as imitating MacGyver. You're all good? Okay. So personal connection. So yeah, you just talked about a great personal connection with MacGyver and yourself and in the woods. And then in St. Catharines, what would be the I know along the canal in Welland, that's where we did a lot of that more wooded area hangout time. We have a good park, Woodlawn Park, in the neighborhood that I grew up in. But was that closer to North St. Catharines that you would find the woodland areas, or?
See, I grew up in Cape Breton, and I moved here when I was 20. So I grew up in Glace Bay, Nova Scotia, and we had lots of wooded areas around my house. And I was always a leader. My husband's cousin, Chantal, she also loved MacGyver. She was what we called a tomboy as well. And she wrote to MacGyver, and he told me this yesterday because I was talking about it. She wrote to MacGyver and got a letter back. And today I got to ask her if she still has that letter. I want to know what's in it. I want to know what he said.
Yeah.
You know, there's a MacGyver reboot. It's probably terrible, but I'm going to check out an episode.
And they're also making another MacGruber too.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
if they could come out on the same day, I think that would be amazing. But it might be really confusing for a lot of people. I do find MacGruber pretty hilarious as well. I thought that movie was pretty funny. And yeah, so I really I hope she hasn't lost that letter. I hope that it's still there. That would be an amazing feat if she could have that. All right. So once again, I appreciate all your involvement with the TV bracket or battle bracket. You know, it's getting a lot of legs, and you know, as you mentioned before, we did the interview. It's made for me, like, going on Twitter a little bit more tolerable. Like, I find Twitter is a good social media vehicle. It gets a lot of thoughts out, but not too long. Where, I don't know if you're on Facebook, but people can just go off on Facebook. At least Twitter makes you control yourself a little bit, even though there's some there a lack of. But yeah, definitely during all the tumultuous times of 2020, it's been good to set up this bracket. There's 2 weeks left. You gave us your final four, so we hope the best. So, Karrie, thanks a lot. Any other final words for our listening audience?
No, I'm just so glad you're doing this, and I want to thank you. It's been a relief for me on Twitter to reminisce and to think about something else other than all the things that are happening around the world right now, and to remember a time in our lives when things were different, things were more simple. I probably had a better attention span because, you know, we would sit and watch TV for hours. This is before TikTok and Twitter. So I want to thank you for that. And this is probably a lot of work for you.
Oh, it's not too bad. Yeah. I'm usually managing a few hockey leagues around this time anyway. So it's kind of just, you know, copy and paste the time. Yeah. But overall, it's definitely worth it.
Are you going to do something like this again?
Yeah, I think.
What would be the idea?
What would be the idea? Yeah. So,
like theme songs, or I don't know. What could be a great?
You know, going back to our Danger Bay conversation, and you know, thinking about shows like Beachcombers and Littlest Hobo, I think that I'd love to do not a theme song, but just a Canadian TV theme bracket. Like Kids, sure, why not? Like Kids Street, remember Kids Street in the car and they were clapping over their head? You know, can that go up against, you know, another Canadian show like Beachcombers and beat them? I think that would be an interesting one because Canadian TV, there's really nothing like it. It's odd, it's different, and there's definitely a few omissions that we could have included in this one, but you know, as with anything. But yeah, I'd like to do a Canadian show one.
Okay,
Get really deep into that.
Fun.
Like
yes.
Today's special, like where does that rank in people's hearts? Like
yes. And the Edison Twins, remember the Edison Twins?
Yeah, that song I thought was robbed as well. I thought that song had a good underlying, but I think it went up against a pretty significant opponent and just didn't have the legs. So it was an unfortunate ending for the Edison Twins, but great show. And yeah, so I think that's all we needed from you today. So thanks, Karrie, and make sure you tell your husband to have a great Father's Day and all the best.
Yes, happy Father's Day to you. Thanks,
okay.
Kelly.
Thanks,
all
Karrie.
right.